is visiting our service from home. We Unitarians of Lake Norman are an open and inclusive congregation. Our members walk very diverse paths to find meaning and purpose. Some walk to and from other countries, like the Philippines. But we're united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and by the responsibility to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. I'm Sandy McFeely, and I've been an active member of this congregation since 2013. Our musician today is Mike Alec, almost certainly joined by our own Eddie Gunn on the mouth harp. And we are grateful to both of them for sharing their talents. Our speaker today is Dr. Wayne Sotile, who is a clinical psychologist based here in Davidson. He was recommended to us by his wife's friend, Jan Pogue, who then mysteriously stuck to her plan to go and spend the hot, humid months on Martha's Vineyard. Hence, she's not here today, but we all are. Wayne and his team have studied the phenomenon of human resilience, how people can go through difficult times, traumatic times, and still maintain hope and still have a sense of well-being, and likely come through those challenging times feeling stronger. Where have you been for the last 8 years? We needed you. It's more than good luck or good genes. It takes some awareness and conscious effort, and Wayne will talk about it with us this afternoon. We start our services and other activities by lighting a candle inside a chalice and speaking words that call us to that occasion. Please join me in saying today's chalice lighting words, which are in your order of service. We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the world we see, and search for truth, may we be just, and search for justice, may we be loving, and in loving, may we find peace. Our opening words today are from a 17th century Japanese poet and samurai, Mizuta Masahide. My barn having burned down, I can now see the moon. And our centering music is one of Mike Alec's own compositions called Sail On. So please stay comfortably seated while he takes us with his music into this space of worship and contemplation.
Is Eddie here?
I love his own composition.
I like to challenge, and
I'm up for the challenge
because he's the best. This one's in C.
Got it.
That's the car. C for cookie. I did want to give thanks to 12 jurors in Manhattan for voting.
Brave souls.
to sail on with this crowd. And now, Wayne Sotile.
Thank you all. What great music. Thank you so much. What a pleasure it is to be here. I was thinking, and thank you, Sandy, for all your great help in getting me oriented. My wife and I got married in a Unitarian church right after the Civil War. And, it was actually 47 years ago. Poor Mary. That's what my 4 siblings always call them and say, well, how's poor Mary? And I said, why do you keep saying poor Mary? Well, she's married to you is the reason why. It's great to be here. I'm honored. I want to begin with a story, a quote, a question, a disclosure, and a disclaimer. I'll remember all that. You don't have to. Here's a story. This supposedly is a true story that's bantered around on the lecture circuit. I've heard it a number of times. It's a story of a 9-person squad of soldiers who were on maneuvers in a mountainous area and got lost just as a snowstorm came in and missed the rendezvous point. As the story goes, the soldiers were wandering around and got anxious, started bickering with each other. We should have gone left, we should have gone right. You don't know where we're going. What are we going to do? And started having a lot of conflict. And then the storm turned to a blizzard, and everybody on the ground got concerned about whether or not these soldiers would survive. The soldiers got concerned too, so they sought shelter in some cave-like structure, figuring they might be socked in for Lord knows how long. And in order to safeguard themselves, they decided to pool their resources. So they dumped all the stuff out of their backpacks, and in the process, one of the soldiers realized they had a map to the mountain. They followed the map down the mountain, hit the rendezvous point, they all got saved. 8 hours later, someone noticed that's the map to the wrong mountain. We can come back to this in a moment, because it epitomizes the times we're in so many ways. God knows we're having some blizzards in our country, in our world, for many people in their families. And there are some risks inherent in that little story or parable or whatever it is, but I love it because it epitomizes some right stuff and some wrong stuff about how to get through hard times and come out stronger and better, not just survive. Now, this gets me to my quote, life's about love and work. Sigmund Freud said that. Might be the only thing old Sigmund got right in his cocaine-induced haze. But he nailed that. Because we know, now I know a lot of you are not working for pay anymore, but what we know from research is that the people who live longest live most happily and are proclaimed by the people in their lives to be the people they want to be around most. From teenage years to the day they die have 2 things. They've got loving connection with some people, and they've got work that they love and they engage in it passionately, whether that's work for pay or not. It gives them purpose to be a part of some community or some mission or some endeavor. Now, relative to whatever your roles are personally or in your community, this gets to my question. This is the money question from 80 plus years of research about who gets through hard times comes out stronger. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy would you say you are? All factors considered in your life. If you're like most people, most of you said, I'm around a 7. And that should be a guidepost for you because simply put, positive and negative emotions and behaviors, no matter what we study, tend to co-vary. If we study family behaviors, the better mood we're in, the more positive we are with our family. If we study just general stress management, the more positive our mood, the better we deal with stress. We study creativity, the more positive. How many of you have decided I'm going to start exercising more, eating more healthily, drink less, or whatever advice you might have, and you've fallen off the wagon? How many times? I was lecturing to 1,000 people recently. So how many times have you done that? More than 20 times, more than 30 times, more than 50. And one guy said, "This week? You mean this week?" Most of us do that about 1,000 times by the time we're 40. Now, what knocks us off the wagon, whatever that may be? It's negative emotions. This is when I'm stressed, anxious, angry, scared, lonely, or feel underappreciated, that I say, oh man, what the heck, I'm gonna eat a piece of chocolate cake. While I'm at it, I'm gonna eat the whole cake and drink a bottle of wine, and I sure am not gonna exercise today. All things that, that's how negative emotions lead to negative behaviors, which leads to negative outcomes. How happy you are is very, very important. Now, if you don't like the word happy, substitute another word. How would you, because I don't necessarily mean happy. How would you rate your overall level of contentment or resolve about, for my age, for this stage of life, given the things I face? I'm in that 7 zone. If you dip too far below, think about some of the things I'm going to talk about. If you're above 7, celebrate. That's kind of the set point for millions of data points. Now, this gets to my disclaimer. I have no idea how to tell you to get through hard times and how to be happy. I don't walk in your shoes. And further, I got to give you my disclosure so you can take what I say with as many pounds of salt as you need to decide whether or not to pay any attention to it. I've lived in beautiful North Carolina for nearly 50 years now, because I finished up my training in clinical psychology in the Department of Psychiatry at the medical school at Duke. That's where I met my wife. But I grew up in South Louisiana. I grew up in a little town midway between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, right on the border of Cajun country. Any of you ever, Donaldsonville, Louisiana? Any of you ever seen that goofball show, Swamp People, where they catch the alligators with them? That's filmed 9 miles from the house I grew up in. I've got over 300 relatives who live in South Louisiana. And growing up in that Cajun culture, I'm Italian, but I grew up in that Cajun culture. And the more I've studied as a social scientist, the more I've experienced in life, the more I realize so much that we do to help people when we're able to do that, or organizations or teams or individuals or families, is kind of correcting their Cajun logic, even though they don't know they've got it. So much that's wrong is related to Cajun logic. We Cajuns do 2 things. We get the right concept, wrong application to things. And we tend to ignore the obvious. So I'll give you an example. The 2 master practitioners of Cajun logic in my lifetime have been my brother Glenn and my cousin Bonadonna. So visiting them recently, and they were saying to me, now what you do, we don't understand what you do. We understood when you were in practice in Winston-Salem before you moved to Davidson, and you saw patients in your office all day and you counsel them. We know what that is. But now you're a speaker and a consultant. We know what speaking is. That's talking. What's consulting? I say consulting is I go around into companies and healthcare systems, and they ask me questions and I give them answers. And Bonadonna said, they pay you money for that? I said, they pay me money. Next thing I know, they built a little shack right on the Chaffetz Spillway, put up a big sign for $3.65, Glenn and Bonadonna's coaching, counseling service. They will answer any question you got. First man drove up. He said, what's the fastest way to get from here to Lafayette? Glenn looked at Bonadonna. Bonadonna asked the man, you walking or driving? The man said, I'm driving. Glenn said, that's the fastest way. $3.65. I'm going to try to give you more than $3.65. I do know some stuff about resilience. This is the thing that we have studied over all these years. My wife Mary and I went into I was on the faculty of the medical school 100 years ago. They went into private practice, and we've had over 40,000 people come to our practice. Most are high performing people who are self-referred for work-life balance issues, leadership training, whatever. Plus mainline stuff you go to a psychological practice for. Our daughters Rebecca Fallon and Julia Orlando now run our practice. I'm retired from clinical practice, so as Mary, I speak and consult. But what we studied, first with medical patients, then with everyone else that has come, is who gets, it's not, the question is not if you're bopping along at this level, hard times hit, how do you get back to that level? The resilience question is you're bopping along at this level of well-being, hard times hit, and some transformation happens going through those hard times. that bring you out better than you were before the hard times. No one would choose to have heart disease or cancer or go through a divorce or grieve the loss of a loved one. But the resilience literature is a magnificently inspirational literature because it shows that the majority of people do prove to be resilient. But there's some evidence-based things that we can learn from those people who have, it's variously called resilience, post-trauma growth syndrome is another term for it. The majority of people who go through traumatic experiences have post-traumatic stress syndrome, but only a relatively small percentage of them lock into a post-traumatic stress disorder. They start evidencing post-trauma growth. As I have studied this for decades and step back and look at the literature as well as our clinical experience, there are certain vital variables, the ones that count for the most variance. If you study people who go through hard times and tank, because nobody escapes going through hard times in their life, or those who go through hard times and after a period of struggle start thriving, what accounts for this difference? That's what we've studied in our group. The vital variables basically are related to one final metaphor. Pretend you're climbing a rock face. One of my clients said to me once, I said, how you doing? I've seen him on and off for decades. I said, how you doing, John? He said, I'll tell you how I'm doing. Just when I think I'm getting to the top of that rock face I'm climbing, that is my career and my family journey, I look up and the thing got taller and steeper. And that's how life is, right? There's always another set of challenges at this stage of the journey. But just like rock climbers, the basic principle that we have to adhere to is relative to the factors, the three sets of factors I'm going to outline for you. Don't make the mistake of rock climbers who fail. They fall off the rock face. They do that by grasping for things they can't reach. The key factor in successful rock climbing, now I'm from Louisiana, I'm scared of escalators. I don't know this, but my rock climbing clients have taught me this. The key factor to successful rock climbing is pay attention to what's beneath your feet. And they say that in most rock climbs, it's no more difficult to get from the ground to 3 feet up. Physically, it's no more difficult than to get 3 feet further up once you're way up there. But once you're way up there, it gets stressful, and then we violate the basic principles. The flip of that is we call it the resilience paradox. Now that things have gotten this complex, you really need to pay attention to the fundamentals of mind, body, spiritual, and relationship health. If you're going to keep climbing this rock face, if you're going to get through this hard time, not just endure it, but come out saying in a strange way, that scar on my chest reminds me of what a blessing, or having gone through that cancer, and I look at pictures, what a blessing, or I didn't think there would ever be love again after I lost that loved one, but it changed me and renewed my understanding of what's most important. In statistics, there are things called vital variables. If you look at anything, here's some set going through experience. What accounts for the most variance? Those are the vital variables. Take care of these, the rest will take care of themselves. In my studying of this, I summarize it in this way. If you want to stay resilient, hone your EAR for resilience. Manage your energy, your attitudes, and your relationships. Your energy, your attitude, and your relationship. Let's talk about it. No energy, no good coping. No good mood. No good coping, no good mood, bad outcomes. Pretend you have this reservoir of psychological, emotional, spiritual, physical energy inside. Every choice you make from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, you're either making a deposit or a withdrawal. I doom scroll for things to make sure I'm still outraged by the things I was outraged about last night. You sure you want to give away that energy before you get out of bed in the morning? Right? Every sip you take, make a deposit or withdrawal. Water, deposit. Caffeine, temporary boost, but ultimately a withdrawal. Every bite you take, good food, deposit. Bad food, simple carbohydrates, and so forth. what you focus on magnifies. And one of the problems we have is whatever bothers us, we tend to get addicted to the outrage of the contrary point of view. We've got data on this. I'm doing a program around the country now about managing our differences in the workplace with some grace. And we know, for example, political conservatives tend to scroll news channels like MSNBC to make sure they know what those other idiots are doing, and they get outraged. And political liberals scroll Fox News to get outraged. The outrage gets addictive, but that outrage is incredibly draining of coping energy. It's like taking small dosages of poison every time I get out because you're losing energy. Now, in contrast to the inevitable hassles that we face in the world, one of the big bodies of research about resilience is if you study people who are thriving, they don't have fewer hassles. They have more uplifts. The hassles are inevitable. The uplifts are about you paying attention to what's beneath your feet. Even if we call it the resilience challenge, even if they are 90% of the problem, and when we're distressed, we're always blaming it on them, the fictitious or specific them. What's your 10%? And that's what's beneath your feet. So we know that if you get a 3 to 5 uplift for every hassle ratio, 3 to 5 to 1 ratio, 30 plus years of research suggests by Barbara Fredrickson, the queen of resilience research, you're going to sustain resilience. Now, there's specific uplifts to learn to scan for, harvest, let polish your heart and soul. Talk about with your family. Let them know we're going to have a project. This week we're scanning for this. Tonight we're going to talk about, what did you know? What are you grateful for? It's one of the most powerful ways to reset stress graphs. What happened today that generated gratitude? To whom can I write a gratitude letter thanking them for all they've been in my life? That's a huge way of boosting their mood and your own. What happened today that gave me hope? Hope is the oil that lubricates the resilience engine. What did that wrong map on the side of the mountain do for those soldiers? It gave them hope of a desired future. And geared with that, they corrected the anathema to resilience, which is interpersonal tension. All of us will, all working effectively together, will always outperform any one of us, no matter how right one of us may think we are. So, geared with hope, they were able to look at things differently. And one of the attitudes that drives resilience is called wonderment. I love that word. Wonderment is seeing the familiar and unfamiliar ways. So they had the wrong map, but it gave them hope, and they allowed them to start collaborating in the collective IQ is better than any individual IQ, and they got creative. And with a combination of information and intuition, they found a way down the mountain. Gratitude, hope, another uplift. Serenity. What are your practices for serenity? They come in describe disguised fashion often. I'm stuck in. I was scanning for serenity one week, and I encourage you to scan for one of these themes all week. Don't try doing all 8 or 10 of them. I was scanning for serenity, just noticing when do I feel most serene. I love it when I hear the coffee dripping in the morning and I can smell it. It's a moment of true serenity. I love when the sprinklers are watering our lawn. I mean, there's strange little things I hadn't thought of. And I was going to Charlotte, stuck in the Interstate 77 traffic, surprise. And it dawned on me, I could sit here pounding on my steering wheel, being frustrated, questioning the heredity of everybody in front of me who's driving like crazy. Or maybe somebody's telling me, slow down here, Lucille. This is a moment of serenity. You're not going anywhere. No matter how high your blood pressure is, the traffic's going to move when it feels like moving. It's a disguised moment of serenity. Interest. What new did I learn today? Even if I had to learn something about something I didn't want to know about. But I did learn something. It's energizing. Awe, inspiration. How can we not be children are in constant state of awe. because they live in wonderment. They see the familiar and unfamiliar. That's why it's so hard for me to take a walk from here to the back of this lot with one of my grandchildren. They stop and examine all this stuff. I don't even notice in my hurry sickness. Pride of survivorship is a characteristic of people with post-trauma growth. If I've been through that, I can go through anything. Or pride of affiliation. There are no perfect people. There's no perfect family, but I'm proud that we are. There's no perfect friend. There's no perfect anybody. I'm proud of us for hanging in. Love is one of those. Love with a capital L and a small L. Being patient and kind to someone makes us feel better. That doesn't just make them feel better. And of course, nothing energizes us more than the loving compassion and interaction and support of our closest loved ones. I'll talk about that in a second. And then finally is joy. Joy with a capital J with a small j. I was lecturing somewhere and this woman said, well, let's do this little exercise. I want you to think back on this day, and I want you to think about how many minutes of pure joy you experienced today. You got 10 seconds, go. 5 seconds up. 10 seconds up. Did any of you get more than 3? I have probably done that little exercise probably for 500,000 people. Almost no one gets more than 3. Every now and then somebody will get 3. Almost never does anyone get 5 or more, except one place. One place I was lecturing in Colorado Springs, Colorado. They had to come every 3 months, a hospital system to drive resilience. And I was talking about wonderment, see the familiar and unfamiliar ways. I was talking about all this stuff. And I did the joy exercise. A few people got 3, one woman got 5. I came back 3 months later, I was lecturing about teamwork. And as a non sequitur, I did the joy exercise again. And this time, a number of people got 3 or 4 got 5. One woman kept, how many did you get? She said 13. I said, nobody's ever gotten 13 in 10 seconds in the history of the world. I got 13. I said, how did you get 13? She said, wonderment, baby. See the familiar and unfamiliar ways. That's what I was talking about the last time. I said, well, you paid attention. I paid a lot of attention because I've been struggling. I said, well, what happened? And she said, I was driving to work yesterday. I asked, how many moments of joy did you experience at work yesterday? I was driving to work yesterday in a funk because I didn't want to come to work. But then I was thinking, I'm supposed to be scanning for that stupid joy this week. That's exactly how she said it. And then she said, maybe just because I was noticing it, but I swear yesterday was the first time I could remember in the 26 years I've worked at this hospital that I found a parking spot as soon as I entered the parking deck. And I was thinking, there it is, joy. Then I walked through that 100-degree heat, opened the door to the hospital like I've done every time I'm going to work. But that air-conditioned air hit me and I thought, joy. And on my way to the elevator, 4 different people smiled at me and said good morning. And I thought, joy, joy, joy. I let it count for 4. And so on it went. And it was cute, but it was poignant. She said, I'm a nurse manager in 10 West, and I realized after you were speaking last time, every day people make withdrawals from my energy. Folks are suffering, staff is grumpy, and families are stressed. Why would I not replenish my energy just by noticing what's right and good in front of me? This is a beautiful example of it. Pay attention. Ask yourself regularly throughout the day, did I just make a deposit or withdrawal? Manage your energy, E in ear. Secondly, manage your attitude. There are 4 evidence-based attitudes that correlate with the best families, the best teams, and the people who are most likely to recover from setbacks or stay well. Number 1, wonderment. See the familiar and unfamiliar ways because it helps you keep harvesting. Number 2, meaning. Meaning is the antidote to distress. If there's meaning in what I'm doing, I'm energized and I do it better. This requires, number 3, the psychology of incorporation. Now, this one is difficult. We first discovered this researching heart patients who thrive versus those who tanked after the diagnosis. Everybody got upset after the diagnosis. But the people who don't recover well-being so often have a psychology of discontinuity, no matter what we study. My life was going along well. I went square dancing. I had my relationships with these people. I did these exercises. I played, whatever it might be, how many legs I've got to stand on for well-being. And then this happened. And now my life is terrible. Well, it's terrible because you chop down the other legs. A psychology of discontinuity. Now that I'm going through this, now that I'm grieving, now that I have this diagnosis, I'm going to stop doing the things that re-energize me. The psychology of incorporation is my life, our life is about a lot of things on this journey. And now it's about this too. I'm learning to live alone. It doesn't make my life bad. It's just a hard thing I'm going through. I'm learning to live with cancer or with your challenges. We got to incorporate it into the fold that life is good even during the hard times if we put the right ingredients in the well-being gumbo. Wonderment, meaning, the psychology of incorporation, and the final attitude that correlates with resilience is realistic optimism. That means acknowledging the challenges we face. These are really, really difficult times, but maintaining an attitude of hope. Belief that we have the will and the way if we will join together to accomplish our goals. And have an articulated shared vision of a desired future. Manage your energy, manage your attitudes. Periodically ask, did I make a deposit or withdrawal of my energy? With your attitude, ask, what am I thinking and spreading? Because your attitudes and the emotions that come with them are contagious. And then the R in my acronym for EAR is relationships. As go our relationships, so will go our resilience. The longest term study we have, a Harvard study by George Gallant, suggests that your answer to one question is most likely to predict how long you're going to live. Now, this is the real mamma jamma question. The question is this: do you have a 2 a.m. friend? Is there someone in your life you are confident I could call in the middle of any night to ask for help and they would help me? The question is not, did you ever call them? Having a village of support is wonderful, but at least having someone that I know is there for me gets to the core of relationships matter. Now, I'll wrap up by saying, I believe that communities like yours are the antidote to so much that ails us in our culture, and certainly ails us in our minds, bodies, and spirits. Because we become so splintered. We've got an epidemic of what psychologists have called for decades the fundamental error of attribution. I have my mental map about politics, sports teams, what good people do, work ethic, or whatever. And if somebody behaves in a way that's different than my mental map, resilient people jump to inquisitiveness. Well, it's interesting. I give you the benefit of the doubt. I assume you're a good person. You just pull for a different team than I do. That's an adaptive response because we learn something, we explore. What the fundamental error of attribution is, when you behave differently than I think you should behave, I slay your character. You're dumb, you're selfish, you're bad, you're immoral, you're greedy, you're ignorant, whatever it is. And I mean, I can't stand to watch ESPN anymore. All they do is scream at each other. Is, you out of your mind, why would you draft this person instead of that person? I mean, it's not thoughtful discourse. And it happens in our homes also. Regarding relationships, it's important for us, as John Rowland, who invented marriage therapy, said, to be really kind relative to our dealings with our own and each other's enduring vulnerabilities. We all have some stuff that we are sensitive about. And when we trigger each other, it's important to be safe spaces for each other. Heroes create safe spaces for other people. A principle from the other side of the couch in a counseling session is this: any emotion that is accurately identified and appropriately expressed in a safe space, a supportive environment, tends to dissipate. Any emotion that is accurately identified and appropriately expressed in a safe space tends to dissipate. Now, it's harder to do these because number one, it's hard to actually identify because we do feeling substitutions. Oh, I'm not scared, I'm just angry. Oh, I'm not feeling ashamed, I'm just angry. Oh, I'm not depressed, I'm angry at you for asking me if I'm depressed. Right? What's important is for us to pay attention to how we treat each other. If I could wave a magic wand and give the world one gift, it'd be a two-sided gift. On one side would be the gift of self-compassion. Contrary to what people tend to think when I say that word, that's not about being weak, wimpy, whiny, self-indulgent. Quite the wonderful researcher Christian Neff has demonstrated that people who score high on self-compassion are the most extraordinary performers, no matter what we study. The most extraordinary athletes are off the graph on self-compassion. Self-compassion is treating oneself with the same kind of interest, kindness, forgiveness, and encouragement that we give our children or grandchildren on our best days. But we tend not to treat ourselves that way. Well, great performers do. I took the last shot, missed, and we lost the game 138 times. I can't wait to take the next last shot. Somebody's got to take it. Michael Jordan famously said that. Others, most of us will beat ourselves to death, because demoralize ourselves because I didn't perform up to standard. So one thing I would give is self-compassion. We rant and rave at other people because we rant and rave at ourselves. And then we get together with some other people who are ranting and raving. And it becomes a self-perpetuating downward spiral. The second gift I'd give is one I learned from my grandparents. Growing up in this little town in Donaldsonville, Louisiana, I saw four of my grandparents just about every day of my life because my parents were great about this. Go see your grandparents today. They might not be here tomorrow. We grew up hearing that. And I look back on it, we grew up hearing that when my grandparents were like 20 years younger than I am now. Every Father's Day, my grandfather would say, y'all come up for Father's Day, might be my last one. I look back, I'm 73. He was like 61 when he was saying that. But it's the greatest gift my parents gave us because my grandparents, and this is the gift I'd give. I would give the gift I learned from my grandparents. No matter what, be generous and be gracious to other people. Be generous in what you give to other people, even if it's hard to give what they need, attention right now, listening right now, appreciation for what they're doing. Be generous in what you give to other people. And be gracious in responding to what other people bring to you, even if it's not your first choice. Sometimes it's real simple. I got me a glass of water. I got you one too. That's generous. Well, thank you. I'm not thirsty right now, but I'm going to save this water right here. And I'm going to drink it later on. And when I do, I'm going to think about you because you're still my only honey pie. That's gracious. That's also worth about $30,000 of marriage therapy with me. But you got to do it every now and then. Every time I walked in my grandparents' house, a variation of this happened. My grandmother Sotile would always be washing, cleaning, wiping, cooking. And she'd stop, she'd look up, she'd say, it's Mr. Wayne. That's what she called me. My day just got better. If I felt good, I felt great. If I felt bad, I felt better. And then she'd say the same thing. She'd say, come here, sit down next to me. She sat on that waxy tablecloth kitchen table. Sit down next to me a little while. Hold my hand. Let me look at you. She had little strong hands that smelled like Jergens lotion. To this day, if I smell Jergens lotion, it makes me cry. Let me look at you. You take care of yourself. I'm marrying your baby. Listen, let me tell you, I wrote some books and I went on TV. I did something. Sit down next to me. Let me look at you. How y'all doing? I wish y'all lived in my backyard. I was 46 years old the year my grandmother died. That year, one time, I swear to you, she said, come here, sit down next to me, hold my hand. Don't talk. She just wanted to look at me. On my best days, that's how I treat people. Of course, I don't always. Stress makes narcissists of us all. And we start blurring our recognition of the people in our peripheral vision because we're so focused on this thing that we confuse being busy as being important. So my hope, on the one hand, for each of you, self-compassion. On the other hand, be generous and be gracious. I tell you what, y'all doing right now, the magic from the 80 plus years of research, supporting each other. In contrast to the epidemic of loneliness in our culture. We know there are 4 kinds of social support. Informational support, give me some input about something new that will help me. This is what you do in this community. Emotional support, your rocks. Tangible support, I'll come back to this one, help in a sense of connection. I'm not in this alone. This is why people who believe in a nurturing God are more resilient than those who don't. When I was at Duke, there was world-class studies that just demonstrated this with hundreds of thousands of people studying who lives longest and best. Believing in a nurturing God generates uplifts, which generates positive coping. And maybe it's a matter of faith. We're not going to psychologize everything. The trifecta is if you appeal to that nurturing God routinely with some ritual. And thirdly, if you get together some other people and appeal to that higher order notion that's bigger than yourself. So thank you for letting me be a small part of your getting together and helping each other keep scaling that rock face. I hope that you keep paying attention to what's beneath your feet and hone your ear while you're being generous and gracious to each other. Thank you very much.
Don't run away. This is
Okay.
the time where you get to complain or ask or share a story of your own or a question.
I guess I have a question. When I was growing up, I was told pride was bad. Like any sort of pride.
Any sort of pride was bad. That's what I was told. And I'm trying to overcome that, or not have that way of thinking. But then you talked about self-compassion and, like Michael Jordan taking that last shot. And in my youth, I would have seen that through the lens of he's cocky, he's arrogant to have that attitude. But I guess my question for you is how does self-pride and self-compassion relate to each other? Does that make sense?
It's a great question. And the pride factor was actually, this is very interesting. The person who is world famous for studying post-trauma growth syndrome is Dr. Tedeschi, who is now retired, but he was a UNC Greensboro faculty member. And his research just lay dormant for a long time until COVID times. And then there's an explosion of interest in who gets through hard times and comes out stronger. Now, bear with me for a second here. I'm going to outline these factors. And the next time you see a prisoner who's been released after 25 years of false imprisonment, because DNA now show that they didn't do it, they almost always show post-trauma growth. They're almost never ranting and raving. Number one, there's a renewed connection with something bigger than myself. So many people, if they didn't get religion, if they didn't have religion, they found something that they believed in bigger. Post-trauma growth people. Secondly, this pride of survivorship. That's what I'm talking about. And this is where self-compassion comes in. I look back, and when a third is a renewed understanding of what's important about the relationships in my life. I'm just looking forward to joining my family. And a fourth is an image of a desired future. And every day I'm going to take a step toward that desire. I've got things I want to do. Now, the self-compassion and pride come together in this way. When you find yourself struggling, if you could hear that internal dialogue, it's usually a critical dialogue saying you should be stronger, you should stop whining, you should be weak. Or if you think even more poignantly, we all have things that we regret. I wish I'd known then what I know now. I made some mistakes. I'm ashamed of myself for some things I did. As much as I pray, as much as I seek, but it's hard. I invite people always, how old were you when you made those choices? Go notice some people who are that age now. And the people get tearful immediately. they think of a niece and nephew, a great niece, a great nephew, a child, or just a neighbor, would you shame them and relentless be on them? If that's how old you were when you made those mistakes. So the flip side of that shaming and blaming, which drain our caring, our energy that require you. My chosen self for almost all of us is my chosen self is I want to be a kind, caring, loving presence in the world. You can't do that if you're shaming and blaming yourself and being held hostage to some of the old time scripts. Whoever wrote our old time scripts was doing the best they could. They didn't want you to fail. So they said, don't be cocky, don't be arrogant, be humble. That's a good thing. It would be so nice if they had told I was told the same thing. If they told us also, but be proud of your capacity to keep going. Be proud. This is tough what we're going through, but you're hanging in there. I'm proud of you, so you be proud. It's not dangerous. That's the kind of pride I'm talking. I'm not talking about hubris. In fact, as we age, self-centered, aggrandizing, self-aggrandizing, malignant narcissism. As we age, we go from the hubris of young age to the humility of middle age. That I'm no longer young enough to know everything. It's one of my favorite quotes. That the younger we are, the more we think we know everything. That not that kind of false pride, but really a pride of, I've been through some tough stuff. It helps us to be more compassionate to others as they're going through tough stuff. Yeah.
So the question I have for you is, Paula is a motivational speaker for corporations, and she talks about a lot of the things to employees and corporations that you mentioned, resilience and how to function better with their thoughts and feelings. And so I hear a lot of this positive thinking all day long when she's practicing around the house. It's reading all the books and listening to things. But so we have this discussion. So she's very much like what you said is I'll be listening to the news or, watching the news or something. I don't watch it too much, but I'll, on my computer or something or listening to it. And so we have this, and I want to share something with her. She says, it's not energizing. I don't want to hear it, and it's kind of negative. And we have this discussion. Of course, to me, I'm always arguing, yeah, but there are things happening in the world that you have to be aware of and not deny. And I agree that many of the things are not energizing, but if you don't pay attention to some of the other things that maybe aren't in themselves energizing or positive, there's no way you can change that or improve the world or for yourself or future generations. As you use, one of the things we're all involved in is social activism of some type.
Right.
Well, I mean, if we didn't hear about some of the injustices
Totally
in our
agree with you.
society, if we say, I don't want to listen to that because that doesn't energize me, then, we wouldn't be motivated to do anything about that. So we have this discussion here.
Sorry. For a long time, I've made my living having these kinds of discussions. But what do you think, Paul?
So first of all, I adore this man. I absolutely adore this man. And I do everything I can, blushing face, to be positive and keep our relationship happy. And so that aside, what my point is I don't need to know how many people died and how, layers and layers of layers, because what you said, right, is what you focus on is magnified, right? I said focus on grows. So if I keep focusing on, oh my gosh, Donald Trump, what he did today, I don't need to know exactly what he did today. I need to know he's guilty, 34 counts, I'll celebrate. It's great news, that's a positive, right? I'll jump up and down. But I don't need to know that he's claiming this and he's saying that, he told this person. I don't need to know all those fine details. I need to try to keep myself up here. And yes, I can err towards Pollyannish. And part of that is, we all have a story, blah, 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 is I went way, way, way down. I was depressed for years when I was in a marriage that I chose to stay in probably too long. So there's part of that psyche that says, I don't want to fall down now.
Yeah, sure. Well, I agree with both of you, honestly. And let me give you the context. I believe that I believe that the takeaway is don't wallow in negative news, but be aware of what's going on. And if there is injustice, do what you can do to do something. What's your 10%? I can contribute to this, or I can voice this. But you reach a point of diminishing returns in the adaptive function. I'm the same way with the political news. We really keep up with it, but I don't want to hear all the details. If I'm getting outraged, I'm getting too much. I understand. I already disagree with this, or I agree with this. I want information that will help me to re-examine my mental map, even though it might make me feel uncomfortable. But if I'm just collecting confirmation bias, it's called, I'm collecting more and more information to perpetuate my already existing biases, is now adaptive. Now, I agree with your name. Yeah. I agree with Jeff in this sense. So we need not to be Pollyanna-ish, and not that you are, we need not to be Pollyanna-ish about positive psychology. There's an adaptive purpose to negative emotions. Negative emotions, and the apt metaphor here that is always used is, in analogy, is we're like a sailboat, and the wind that drives the boat are positive emotions, gratitude, joy, all that stuff. But the rudder that determines what direction you go in are negative emotions. And so, there's an adaptive purpose for negative emotions. If I'm feeling anger, it means somebody's invading my space. I need to set, or some ideologies of it, I need to set some limits. If I'm feeling envious, it means it should motivate me. Adaptive purpose means if I experience the emotion, it gets my attention, I figure out what I need to do more or less of in order to quiet the emotion, and I get off my rear end and do something. It's an adaptive. If I feel guilty, it means I'm doing too much or too little of something I need to start doing more or less of. If I'm feeling envious, it means I need to figure out what it is these people have that I want something, I want to become more that way, let me do it. If I'm feeling anxious, it means I need to do something, learn to do something to self-soothe. So I really encourage you to pay attention to your negative emotions. Not the hollow ones, like just shame. I'm ashamed of who I am because I was abused as a child. There's nothing I can do about that except try to surround myself with a safe space and help me work through the shame. Shame is not real adaptive, for example. So, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Oh, I didn't know I was going to be on this thing. Did you know the Cajun comedian Justin Wilson?
I was on a plane with him, but I didn't know it. But I put a little bit of, I said I was on a plane with him once, but I didn't know him. I'm going to put just a little bit of wine in this, is what he was saying. Just pour the whole bottle in there. He was the first commercially successful TV chef, along with Julia Child. They had real different styles, needless to say. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And now, somehow, Mike Alec, I think, is going to share one of his other compositions with us and reflect the theme of the last several minutes. It'll be wonderful. It always is. Aided and abetted by Eddie Gunn.
There's no money back guarantee,
Oh, okay.
except for Eddie. He's always worth it. Let's see. It's indeed. On this chosen path we pave, for every moment we can save, and all the distance to the final line. Don't you let a good thing fall behind. Little sister, don't you worry, Your broken heart will surely mend. Little brother, don't you hurry, no, no. Gonna see it all before the end. If the sky is dark around you, consolations will arise. Ooh, lift your head and feast your eyes. Don't you let a good thing fall behind. Isn't life a giant wheel? Ooh, the ride begins when you get on. Put the fire to your heel now, before your riding days are gone. Don't you let that cloud of thunder wash away your sunny day. Don't let your smile slip away. Don't you let a good thing fall behind. On this chosen path we pave, for every moment we can save, and all the wonders in this grand design. Don't you let a good thing fall behind. Don't you let a good thing fall behind. Don't you let a good thing fall behind. Never let a good thing fall behind. No, don't you let a good thing fall behind. Cha-cha.
Gentlemen, all three of you, that was fabulous. This fellowship is important to us all. The contributions we make today allow us to sustain and grow our congregation and to reach out to our community, both nearby and in the larger world. Your giving affirms our commitment to each other and to the community. With grateful hearts, we receive these gifts. May they encourage us to live lives of integrity, compassion, and peace. We're also grateful to all the people who make possible our Sunday services, all our various community activities, and presenting us to the outside world through our newsletter and YouTube. And that includes everyone who cheers us on just by being in these seats today, or in their Barca loungers at home. And let me give a special welcome to Susan Cameron, our newest tech squad member, ably mentored by Greg Davis and the incomparable Jim Arnold. Let's look for a minute at the announcements in our order of service. Jim Arnold is going out of town, no doubt to frolic and have a lovely time, but he's left me in charge of the Feed and See Show Up event on June 13th. So if you want to be part of this elite crew, and it is fabulous. And I'm the chief dishwasher, in case anyone has ever forgotten that. Be in touch with me because we always need volunteers. I think we should probably hear from Mr. and Mrs. Wall, who have much to brag about.
Last night was a joy. Really, we had a great time at the auction, a great time. Had a great facility, good food, good people there, a lot of good items. And we raised, this is wrong now, we're at 11,402 right now. So we'll be out here to take checks, credit cards, easy payment plan, no interest, wherever you have. Then we will have what we call a second chance auction. You'll see items come up in next week probably, okay? Thanks to everybody. It was a great time.
It truly was fabulous, and there were a whole lot of volunteers who did wonderful things. And the management of the whole thing was done by Lynn Henderson, who knows how to bring in food where there isn't any. She was turned down flat by a whole bunch of food providers who said, sorry, we have a graduation that is in line ahead of you. So she called another one and got the same story and the same. But nevertheless, it was a great spread, and Molly helped deliver it at the last minute. So that was great. Movie Tuesdays. Tuesday's movie is Summer Camp. It's filmed in Western North Carolina. I've heard of that state, along the Nantahala River. If you'd like to join us, contact Linda. Linda's the lovely lady who brought money. And Linda will also decide what restaurant whoever wants to go along to. It's going to be tonight for social suppers.
Yeah, I was thinking of Crafty Burger, but I don't, there's a lot of people here today, and I don't know whether to go. Let's have a show of hands if you're interested in going either to Crafty Burger or the Fusion place. Let's do Crafty Burger first.
Two minutes.
Okay, I think we'll fit. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go Fusion Bowl. Raise your hand. What do you think?
I saw more hands for Fusion Bowl.
Okay, we'll do Fusion Bowl. We'll do Crafty Burger next.
Okay. I think we've gotten up to the part where we'll do our closing song. It's in the big, heavy, gray hymnal, number 311, Let It Be a Dance. Please stand as you're willing and able.
G. You got a G.
You know it.
You got a G harp?
No, I do.
That's the first one you buy is C and G. There'll be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you? The good times and bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let the dancing song be heard. Play the music and the words. Fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow when to lead. Feel the rhythm in the need. Reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend like a willow in the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Child is born, must die. Time for joy and time to cry. Time as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without darkness ain't no light. Nothing's wrong and nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Ah. Eddie was on that one.
Okay. We close our services by extinguishing the light in the chalice and saying together the words in your order of service. Please stand as you can and take the hands of the people next to you. After the chalice is extinguished, with Mike's help, we will sing the song that typically scoots our children off to their classroom. Go now in peace. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts.
Again.
Come now in peace.
Go now in peace. Go now in peace. Let the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Yeah.